Hello fellow creatives, it is I, ForgettableOtaku, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So many of us love manga. We read something and we go, oh my gosh, that looks so cool. I love this so much. This is what I want to do. But then we end up in the trap of going, oh, well, I don't know if my art's good enough to make manga. And I am here to say once and for all and tell you whether you are good enough to make manga. And guess what? You are already there. Now, I'm not trying to be nice and motivational. To be frank, I don't particularly care if you feel happy and nice. Don't get mad at me. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm not here to try and make you feel better about yourself. I am being dead serious. If you are watching this video right now, you watching this video instead of doing your homework, you are ready to make manga. You are good enough. Your art is already good enough. Now, I know you don't believe me, so we're going to back it up a little bit and go back to the beginning, and by the end of this video, you should believe me. I hope. So the first thing we're going to discuss is, what is manga? We'll go a step further back. What are comics, as manga is a form of comic? So, as we can see on the screen, we've got our trusty friend Wikipedia. So, comics are sequential art. So, they're a medium of telling stories, which is the important thing to notice here. It's a medium, a form of literature, which means that it's about communicating ideas and a story. So, the minimum level of art required to make a comic is enough to communicate your ideas and to communicate the story. Now, I know some of you guys are like, yeah, but I can't draw anything. My perspective sucks and hands are the devil. But I'm pretty sure that if you are here watching a video to do with art, you're already a step ahead of a lot of people. A lot of people go their entire lives and they didn't particularly enjoy art, or they weren't great as a kid, and they go, well, I just can't draw. How do people draw? It's all talent. So the fact that you are here probably means that you consider yourself an artist, you have an interest in learning how to draw, how to get better. So you probably can draw to a certain extent. I'm guessing you can draw enough. You're not a baby. You're not likely, still just struggling to even draw a stick figure. You can probably draw something well enough that if you're playing Pictionary, people know what it is. And that's all you need. Now, I'm not saying that you could just rock up to, Marvel or DC or Shonen Jump with a comic in stick figures and get formally published. I'm not saying that, okay? I mean, there are people with bad art, which I will discuss later, and by bad I mean just not technically sound, that have got formally published things, but they are exceptions. I'm not here going to pretend that there isn't a minimum standard level of art required to be a creator in, published formally. But if you're just wanting to make a story, say, for fun or self-publish, then you probably already have the skills required to do this. This video is more intended so that you take the plunge and start actually making something. I'm not here trying to say that anyone can just get published, but I am saying that your art probably is good enough to, put it on Manga Plus creators. Okay, so let's take it simply. If you're struggling and saying, oh, but I can't draw very well, I'm guessing if you wanted to draw something, you can draw a stick figure, I'm assuming. You can draw a face that looks sad or happy. If you want to, say, draw a car, if you're struggling, you can look at pictures at it. Look at clip art is a really good way to learn how to draw something very simple, or things like logos and silhouettes. You often get, say, pictures. There are ways to draw things simply and communicate your ideas, and that is the minimum needed to actually make a comic. In fact, I remember the first comic I made, I was probably 8. It was a Batman fanfic comic. I remember we were given a 6-panel page, except I wanted to tell a longer story, so I ended up dividing and having tiny panels because I wanted to tell this full story. But what I'm saying is, your art is good enough to get started. I'm telling you that if you want to make manga, stop using your art skill as an excuse to never do it. You're never going to feel ready. Even artists like DD Mark, who is really successful on Manga Plus, is indie, has amazing art, still doesn't personally feel good enough. No one feels good enough. Yusuke Murata's, the GOAT who has created, the art for the published One Punch Man. He doesn't think that he's the greatest artist, so what I'm saying is that if you're using the excuse that, oh, my art isn't very good, so I can't create it, I'll wait until I feel ready, stop doing that, because it's not going to happen. You will be putting it off until the day that you die, if you're, waiting to feel ready. Okay, so I've so far been using manga and comics as synonyms, but in our Western culture, manga specifically refers to a certain style and movement of comics rather than it being seen as the same thing. So I should address that if you're planning to make manga as a non-Japanese artist, then your art style must resemble the style associated with manga to a certain extent, which will take a bit of time and practice, but I'm guessing if you want to make manga, then you've already got a somewhat anime style. I may in later videos go over how this works, because manga is pretty diverse style, so I just thought I should mention that, because it's difficult enough where people don't think anything not made in Japan counts as manga, which is a whole other discussion, but I'm just saying that if you wanted to go for that route where you're making manga rather than just comics, then I thought I should address that your art style will need to fit to a certain extent within that, which, hey, it's not too difficult if that's what you want to do, but I thought that's worth mentioning, because this channel specifically for manga creators, because I'm guessing, like me, a lot of you guys are also into anime and manga, and that's where I'm primarily interested in and want to create, so I thought I should mention this. So now we're going to look at some examples of successful comics with quote-unquote bad art. So there's creators in the West, such as The Old Ones Out and Cyanide and Happiness. There are a few creators like it, often for short gag series where they have a sort of semi-stick figure style art. So that is proof and a route that you don't necessarily need to be the best artist to create something. I will mention that often if you're trying to create a more serious tone, that you may want a more realistic art style, as shown in for example, Death Note has quite a very realistic style compared to other, even within manga, and that helps reflect the mood and tone of the series, so that is something to consider, that perhaps if your art isn't as gritty and technically good, then perhaps looking at maybe a comedy, but it will depend on what you personally feel comfortable in telling and what kind of story you want to write. And I mean, I don't want to discourage anyone, but that is something to consider, what your art style naturally lends itself towards. And then within manga, if you look at a lot of first chapters and just early series compared to how they end up, for example, Yu-Gi-Oh's art changes drastically across the series, Bleach's art gets better, actually pretty much every artist gets better, but one that's very famous for having quote-unquote bad art is the original One Punch Man, which everyone knows looked not that great, and then the creator even made Mob Psycho 100, which wasn't redrawn. You can buy the volumes of that manga in the original art style, and his art, one could call it bad. It's not particularly pretty, there's not a lot of anatomy, he doesn't know perspective, but it gets the job done. It tells the story, it communicates what he wants to tell, and that's all he needs. That's all one needs to tell a good story. A manga and a comic are first and foremost stories. Yes, pretty art can help draw audiences in, and being a visual media, you do want it to look good, but it's a bonus. It's not essential to have the prettiest series to make a good series. People won't read something that looks pretty and has a bad story, but they will read something that maybe doesn't look the best, like Hunter x Hunter. I know a lot of people don't find the art of Hunter x Hunter the best, but everyone still loves Hunter x Hunter because the story is good. Same as Mob Psycho 100. May not have the best art style, but people still read it because it's a good story. Your manga or comic is first and foremost a story. And I feel like this is something that we forget. Because, the pretty pictures are what we see. That, we're artists, so that's what we're focused on. But if you don't have a good story to tell, you've got no comic. And if you don't have particularly good art, but you have a good story, you can work with that. So thank you all for watching. I hope that this helps and will help get some people inspired in making their series if you've been procrastinating. Feel free to comment anything that you maybe want me to discuss later, or your opinion on this topic if you disagree with me, maybe some other examples of series with not as good art. Just tell me anything, I'll respond and look at all the comments. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I'm not actually expecting anyone to do this, so if you have done this, like, you are built different, you are cool, you are Chad, I love you so much, thank you. If you want to like the video, like it. If you want to dislike it, go ahead, I won't get offended, it's good feedback. And plus, haters be haters, and no one else will see it anyway, it'll just be me. If you want to comment, don't feel pressured to comment. If you want to comment. If you want to subscribe. You know how YouTube works. I'm not going to force you and ask you to, do it if you don't want to. Just, you do you, and thanks for tuning in, and stay creative.